chapter number 6. Let's see what's going to happen with Sarah and John. Who's Julie? Sarah asked, first thing that morning. John wasn't surprised. He knew Sarah would be asking. You promised her to solve the world's problems, and she still wasn't going to be satisfied. Alex's sister replied. Is that how Miranda met Alex? Sarah asked. You knew his sister? No, John said. It's complicated. I'm listening, Sarah said, and John knew she was whether he wanted her or not. We lived in Pennsylvania, he said. Well, you know, Dad and Lisa had tried to make it west, but they couldn't, so they came back. Gabe was a baby. They met people on the road, this really nice guy named Charlie, and Alex and Julie. They all came east to our house, and you and Julie became close, Sarah said. Everyone paired off, John replied. Matt had married Syl a few weeks before, and Dad was with Lisa. Miranda didn't give Alex a chance to say no. Even Mom hung on with Charlie. So it felt natural, Julie and me. She was just a year younger. I liked her a lot. He paused at the memory. Maybe I loved her, he said. I said I did. I was almost 15. Can you be in love that young? We didn't have a chance to be young, Sarah said. No, John said, we didn't. So you loved Julie, Sarah said. What happened to her, John? There was more than one answer to the question, but John knew what he would never tell Sarah, never tell anyone. Dad and Lisa and Alex and Julie and Charlie moved into an empty house, John said. I was there all the time, or Julie was at our place. Mom and Dad got along, and Mom was fixated on making sure Lisa had enough to eat so she could nurse Gabe. Sarah nodded. I can picture that, she said, and Miranda and Alex falling in love. The town we lived in was still getting food, John said. Every Monday you could go in and get a few bags, so Julie and I went together on our way back. This was hard. It didn't seem to matter that he rehearsed what to say, how to say it. The words didn't want to come out. Sarah touched him gently on his arm. It's okay, she said. He wasn't okay. I would never be okay. There was a tornado, John said flatly. We got caught in it. I tried to hold on to Julie, but the wind picked her up. Remember plastic bags, how the wind could make them dance? It was like that. Julie fell wrong. I don't know. She broke her neck on her spine. She was paralyzed. She was conscious, but she couldn't move. Oh, John, Sarah said. We took her back to the house, John continued. Dad and Matt and me. Alex got lost in the storm. It took him a couple of days to get back to the house. He forced himself not to think of Alex. Did Julie die? Sarah asked softly. Not right away, John said. She lived another day or so, and then she died in her sleep. Miranda was with her. Julie couldn't do anything for herself. Someone had to be with her all the time. Everyone took turns. That must have been horrible for you, Sarah said, staying with her, seeing her lying there, helpless. I never saw her, John said. The house Dad and Lisa were living in collapsed in the storm. Lisa and Gabe and Charlie were stuck in the cellar. Then Charlie died, so it was just Lisa and Gabe. We had to pull all the rubble off the cellar roof before it collapsed on them. That was all we did. Pull the rubble away. I didn't see Julie. I worked on saving Lisa and Gabe. That had to be done, Sarah said. You did what you had to do. No, John said. I mean, we had to get Lisa and Gabe out, but that wasn't why I didn't sit with Julie. I was scared too. I'm a coward, Sarah. Deep down, that's all I am, a coward. I told Julie I loved her, but when she was helpless and dying and her brother was missing, I couldn't make myself see her. Lisa was an excuse. Mom and Matt and Miranda were used to treating me like a baby. They probably felt they were protecting me by making me say goodbye to Julie, and I let them. I let Julie die without seeing me. John, Sarah said, and he could see how much she wanted to comfort him. No, he said, you know why I'm here today, why I'm walking to the bus with you. I took Julie's pass. Alex had 3. He gave 2 to Lisa for her and Gabe. Julie was supposed to live with them. Lisa loved Julie like a daughter. Only Julie died, and everyone said I should use the last one. Because I was the youngest, and they were all in the habit of protecting me. I'm here on Julie's pass. I couldn't even face her when she was dying. I get to live here and eat the food and go to school, and Miranda's going to have Alex's baby in that hovel. John, the apartment isn't that bad, Sarah said, and Miranda and Alex won't live there forever. You'll love Julie? John nodded. Did she love you? He nodded. Then she'd want you to have her past, Sarah said. She wants you to have the chance she couldn't have. That's what everyone told me, John said, so I wouldn't feel bad about living in Sexton while they were stuck in White Birch. Sarah stood on tiptoes and kissed John on his cheek. I'm sorry, Julie died, she said. I'm sorry for Alex and for you and Lisa. But I'm glad you're here. You're my lifeline, John. I need you so much. You don't know me, John thought. Nobody does. The only one who had was Julie, and she wasn't around to tell anyone who John really was. Let's find out who John really is. Thursday, June 4th. Dr. Carlisle had been a professor of politics science at Bowman Christian College, previously located 20 miles east of White Birch. The college, like most of the colleges in America, had ceased to exist 4 years ago. Dr. Carlisle, like the rest of the teachers, was not a Claver, and so he kept his home in White Birch and was not forced to commute to Sexton like Grubb to teach civics to Claver teenagers. John understood why so much of the school time was devoted to the sciences, botany and biology, chemistry, even physics. He understood the math they were taught was practical, intended for engineering. If you were lucky enough to be a Sexton teenager, it was presumed you'd go to Sexton University and learn all that you could to further their agriculture. New and better greenhouses needed to be built, water supplies to be expanded, and better sources of electrical power to be designed. English was taught because no matter what field of science they were into after graduation, they'd be expected to be literate. John liked the English classes. Mom had been a writer before it all happened, and Matt loved reading sci-fi. There were always books in the house. English classes helped John feel connected to the world and family he no longer lived with. But civics was a waste of time. For 3 years now, Dr. Carlisle had lectured them on his particular view of history, complaining to them about the repulsive nature of grubs. His quarrel wasn't with the government that hadn't selected him to be a Claver. It was with the unwashed, uneducated grubs who had taken over White Birch and made every day of his life a living hell. John had more sympathy for him now that he'd ridden a grubber bus, but even so, Dr. Carlisle was a bore and the class was a waste of time. It was, however, the only time during the school day when the students were given the opportunity to talk, so John wasn't surprised to see Sarah raise her hand, although she dreaded hearing what she had to say. Miss Goldman wishes to speak, Dr. Carlisle declared. Yes, Miss Goldman, what is it? I do my after school at the White Birch Clinic, Sarah said. It's terribly understaffed. I was hoping some of you might consider changing your after schools to clinic work. We can use all the help we can get. Amber Haley raised her hand but didn't wait for Dr. Carlisle to call her. You actually expect us to work in White Birch, she asked, touching those filthy grubs? I work hard at my after school, Jennifer Egan said, tutoring the first and second graders. That's valuable work. The children are our future. There are other children in White Birch too, Sarah said, with diseases Claver kids don't get, like asthma and pneumonia. That's not our fault, Zachary said. We breathe the same lousy air they do. That's right, Elizabeth Jenkins said, but we know enough to take care of our children, not let them grow up like wild animals. Most grubs wouldn't even go to church if their guards didn't make them, Amber said. They'd rather get drunk. I'd rather get drunk too, Ryan said, and everyone except Dr. Carlisle and Sarah laughed. Why do we even have a clinic for the grubs, Tyler asked. Because they're human beings, Sarah said. I don't know, Ryan said. You even see a naked grubber girl? This time even Dr. Carlisle laughed. Maybe there shouldn't be a clinic, Tyler said. We need the strong, healthy grubs to do the manual labor, and we pay them enough for their food and rent and vodka. But the weak grubs, the useless ones, are a drain on all of us. Why not let them die naturally so there'll be more resources for the ones who actually work? Half the kids in the class burst into applause. It's an interesting question, Dr. Carlisle said. I won't ask your responses, Miss Goldman, because I know what it is. Let's hear from someone else. You, Mr. Evans, as our resident slip. Do you think there should be a clinic for grubs? I can't give an objective answer, John replied. I have family in Whitebridge. They use the clinic. Evans is a half-grown, Brian said. You can smell it. The kids laughed. What if you didn't have the family there, Mr. Carlyle persisted? Would you think there should be a clinic? What John thought was he hated Mr. Carlyle's guts, and he wasn't too fond of his friends either. The clinic was important to Sarah, and Sarah was important to John. But Lisa hadn't heard about her evaluation yet. She and Gabe had to be his first priority. Sarah and her ideals would have to wait. I think if we lived in a perfect world, everyone would have health care, he said. But this isn't a perfect world. People who are a lot smarter than me make the decisions. If they think the clinic is a good idea, I'm not going to disagree with them. If they ever decide a clinic isn't a good idea, I won't disagree with them either. So what you're saying is you just go along with whatever you're told, Sarah said. Follow the rules and don't question. Are you suggesting, Miss Goldman, that you are smarter than the people who make the rules? Dr. Carlyle demanded. Don't you think you're smarter than they are? Sarah asked. Miss Goldman, you are very close to treason, Dr. Carlyle said. I don't see why, Sarah persisted. You're a college professor. You have a PhD. You complain about the way you're treated. I complain, as you call it, about the people I am forced to share my hometown with, Dr. Carlyle said. The dregs of humanity, looking for nothing but handouts. They work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, Sarah said. So do Clavers, Jennifer said. My father works like that. I never see him, and he's doing real work, valuable work. Our domestics eat our food and sleep in our homes, and if they had their way, we'd be serving them. That's right, Amber said. Grubs wouldn't have anything to eat if it weren't for us. And now you're saying we should give up our after schools to hold some grub's hands and tell her not to work so hard? You're not from around here, Sarah, Jennifer said. You don't understand how things are. You should keep quiet and not tell us what you think. You're right, Sarah said. I'm not from here, maybe because I'm not. I understand things better than you do. You have some nerve, Amber said, thinking you're smarter than we are because you're from back east. It's not hard to be smarter than you, Sarah muttered. John willed her to shut up, but he never could make Sarah do what he wanted. Let me explain something, Sarah said. There is nobody important living in Sexton, not a senator or a judge or a governor. You think you're important because you have more than everyone else around here? But you have nothing compared to other enclaves. You know that those Clavers think of you, those senators and judges? They think you're farmers, grub farmers. All those greenhouses that are going up, they're to feed the governors, not us. You're one drought away from losing your fancy homes and your domestics. She shook her head. You have a lot more in common. We have a lot more in common with the people in Whitebridge than you do with the people with power. Today's Claver is tomorrow's grub. Are you calling me a grub? Amber shrieked. I wouldn't insult grubs by calling you one, Sarah said. Grubby, 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 Tyler started chanting. It was stupid and meaningless, but the rest of the class joined in, pointing at Sarah and calling her grubby. John mouthed the words but didn't say it. It was a ridiculous compromise, but he didn't know what else to do. The lunch bell rang as the class was getting louder and louder. Sarah was the first to grab her books and stand up. As she walked down the aisle, Zachary stuck her leg out and she stumbled over it. Even Dr. Carlyle burst out laughing. Come on, Evans, Tyler said. Let's see what happens to little Miss Grubb in the cafeteria. John didn't want to see, but he had no choice. Sarah went to the table where she always ate her lunch alone. John followed Tyler and his teammates to the table. Amber walked over to Sarah and spit at her. The other kids in the cafeteria cheered and Amber bowed. Luke got up and, taking his lunch plate with him, walked towards Sarah's table. This'll be good, Ryan said. Want to be the dumps his lunch on her. Let's all do it, Zachary said. Let her know what we think of grub lovers. But all Luke did was stand by Sarah's side and ask if he could join her. John and his teammates watched in silence as Luke sat at Sarah's table and began talking to her. He's crazy, Tyler said. Come on, guys. We got soccer practice in a few minutes. Coach will whip him back into shape. John longed to join Sarah and Luke, but he didn't dare. When Lisa passed her evaluation, he promised himself. Then he'd be as brave as Luke. When John arrived at Sarah's house after breakfast, he saw her standing on the front porch. Go away, she said. Sarah, I'm sorry, John said. I don't care if you're sorry, she said, and I don't need to hear your excuses. It is an excuse, John said. Lisa hasn't heard about the evaluation yet. I can't do anything that might hurt her chances. Sarah shook her head. Today, it's the evaluation, she said. Next week, it'll be because you're a slip. You always have that one to fall back on, don't you, John? I am a slip, John said. You have no idea what that's like. It's an excuse, John, Sarah said. You're a coward, just like you told me. When you didn't visit Julie, that wasn't because you were a slip or Lisa had an evaluation. It was because deep down inside, you're scared. You're weak and cowardly, and I don't want to see you ever again. Sarah, John pleaded. Go away, she said, and don't ever come back. I'll call for a guard. John, if you don't leave right now. I'm not kidding. I'm sorry, he said again, but he began walking away. He turned back once and saw Sarah standing there, absolutely still. Julie wasn't the only one who understood him, he thought. Sarah had known him for a month, and she knew him every bit as well, and now hated him as much. End of chapter 6.